we've come to the end of 3 days of living in the trench, the World War I trench, the trench that's been built and been used 4 years now by, well over 2,000 children. Chris, have you enjoyed it?
He says yawning.
No, it's not that I'm tired particularly. I will be pleased to be going back home, and I am tired. I can't pretend I'm not, but I think all of the hard work has been worthwhile. We've still got a little bit of repairs to finish in the trench at the far end, but really it's the repair is more about trying to enhance the experience of the children in the trench, in that, you know, even today children were excited about the fact that water was running under their feet and they weren't actually getting their feet wet.
Yeah.
So it's to try to enable us to show how the trench system is actually working, and how the duck boards and the way that it's been built maintains it in a sort of relatively dry condition. Which of course leads us on to our next point, I'm sure, which is
The weather.
The weather.
And the thing is, we've all been in this trench when it's been chucking it down with rain. Now, we've been lucky that we've been living in this trench and it hasn't, and the weather's actually been very kind to us. So that gives you a mixed emotion as well, because, you know, in one way we've had an amazing few days. Would have been a very different experience if we'd been huddled under the where the fire is and it'd been chucking it down with rain and it'd been cold and wet, because we'd had a very different relationship with the space that we're in. So that alone says an awful lot, because these people who were there in that time that was their reality. But I think you're right. I think the children that have come here it's given them a real chance to just try and just give them that sense of something real, you know, by handing the weapons, by being shouted at, by being in the trench and with all the sound and everything and all the smoke, which, you know, and trying to remind them that, yes, it was 100 years ago, but that's not an awful long time. It really isn't, not in the scheme of things. And so I think all of those things, you know, I've taken away. And I was saying earlier that I think I now see this trench quite differently. I've seen it in many different ways. And as I said, our experience has been governed very much by the weather, which makes you realise what they would have been up against.
So what about the food, Chris? It's
for a full-on carnival. I've had an absolute ball. I haven't messed around with too much, with too many vegetables. I haven't messed around with too much fancy food. I've eaten a whole chicken. I'm certainly probably getting close to my 4,000 calories a day, with biscuits and tea with sugar. So I certainly haven't gone without.
No.
So you miss your coffee?
In terms of food, I definitely miss my coffee, and something else that was a continuous afterthought was, what do we do with fresh food?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I know that we didn't have issues with rats. You know, I said this morning at 5 o'clock I did have a mouse that was ferreting around in my carrier bag that had my gear in it, but you know, keeping milk that was fresh, and I know that obviously we could have used the tinned condensed milk or the evaporated milk, but I suppose living in the 21st century, that's something that I wasn't used to, and so I suppose in a 21st century where we just have things for everything. You know, we have something that cooks food, we have something that washes up afterwards, we have a place where we can go and sort of sit in the bath and be warm, we have got a place where we can put things to keep them for long periods of time, and we can store stuff in the fridge, but out here everything was sort of pre-packaged in a can, and you know, it's not something I was used to.
And of course, it took us such a long time to cook everything, didn't it?
Yeah.
And I think the chores of washing up, the washing, all those sorts of things took longer than we, would normally use, and that's ate into the time that we'd be trying to do our tasks in keeping the trench tidy, keeping the trench repaired, and making ready. And of course, the lovely thing has been the number of children, over 350 children, who've come in during the last couple of days, all of whom have taken something from this trench. It's lovely to see the children coming in there a little bit excited first of all, and then immediately become take on the role play, being shouted at by us, and taking on a discipline which was beyond their years in some cases. If you think some of the children were just like 2.5 years old, some of them going up to year 8, year 7, year 8, and they've been really, really good, and we've seen an amazing amount. We hope then that when the children see the things happening around November the 11th this year, all of those children are going to go away and know that they've actually been there, they've actually been in the trench. So it's been a really great couple of days. Very tiring.
Yeah.
I'm absolutely tired.
It's all the talking that we've had to do.
And the cold.
And the
Cold
cold.
at night. Yes, blankets. And I think when I asked the other night, how could I keep myself warm? And somebody said, wear a hat and warm socks. And it was, really, I hadn't thought about that. And somebody responding like that was a brilliant idea. So.
Well, and also those great coats last night, they did put the great into great coat. Because they made
heavy
very
great
good
coats.
blankets, and sitting around that fire last night, they were very warm.
Yeah.
But going back to the food, I was going to add that also it's multi-use, because we've made our breakfast using bread and cheese and whatever, honey, and then we've had our lunch, which has been we've had toast and eggs and whatever, and our lunch has been bread and cheese. So we've used a limited pool of foodstuffs and used it in different ways, which has also been really important. Because we had very kind of simple ingredients to work with.
You're the only one who has a honey on eggs, though.
Yeah, honey on everything.
Honey on everything.
Yeah, of course.
So we come to the end of our 3 days. It's been worthwhile.
We got one more over the top.
Well, definitely worthwhile, and but I just I catch myself sometimes thinking at numerous points during the day that as hard as I might find it physically, and sort of, and I suppose emotionally, because I'm trying to make sure that the children get the best experience here in the trench, but I can't get away from the fact that everything that I have been doing here would have made me vulnerable if there really were an enemy that were trying to sort of to shoot me or blow me up, or any number of really nasty things that they could be planning for me, and I haven't had that. As in, it's not been that continuous pressure. Yeah. Something sitting on your shoulder all the time, just waiting for you to make a mistake. Yeah. So that somebody gets that lucky shot, and it's all over for you. And we have not had to go over the top. We haven't had any sort of bombardments. We haven't had any of the horrors that those men must have had to undergo. And I would say I'm scarred for life. My hands. Yes. Blistered.
But that's a very good point. Thinking that those people would have sat there and gone, this cup of tea might be my last one. Yeah. Unknowingness, that's terrifying, really. Yeah. And you say, we haven't had that.
I don't think I've ever worn the same set of clothes for so long, actually.
Yeah.
Because we always had to be ready. I think that's the end of that great experience. I think we are looking forward to looking at the videos that we've made over the last couple of days, and it'll be really interesting to see that, and we hope that those people who do it see it and that recognise that at Hooke Court what we're trying to do is to give the children a really intense experience, to give them an idea of what it might have been like exactly 100 years ago today.